Welcome to installment number 264 of the Mitzvahs as enumerated by Maimonides, the Rambam. Today we once again have the same mitzvah of yesterday, positive commandment 254, which discusses how an acquisition is actually finalized. Specifically, we call it a kinyan. Kinyan is when something is acquired and how that is done. And as we discussed yesterday, there are two different types of things that we can acquire. There are the movable objects and there are the non-movable objects, namely land that cannot be moved. So as we said, the movable objects need to be either moved, lifted, or a person needs to actually take ownership of the item, showing that it belongs to them. Whereas something like land, as we said, money itself is not enough. Biblically it is, however, rabbinically it is not enough, and a document is necessary, or again, as we said, the person, the new owner, must make significant changes to the property, putting in a fence or making significant upgrades, thus showing that the property is actually now his and no longer in its previous ownership. Now, the Talmud makes a very interesting statement that is actually very business savvy. And it says that a person must spend money in order to make money. And any business person will tell you that this is true, that indeed, if you want to make money, you first need to put some investment, you need to put something into it in order to have a greater return. However, a beautiful spiritual take on this is our souls. Our souls, before coming into our bodies, were up in the spiritual spheres. They were living in this heavenly reality. And what happens? They are then put into this physical body on earth. Now, what happens while the soul is in this body on earth? You would hope that it should accumulate some some points, so that by the time it goes back up, it doesn't just simply go back to its starting point where it was before it came down here, but the purpose would be so that it gets a higher elevation. It ends up in a higher place than it was before it started. And thus, the soul is actually spending money in order to make money. Or as we say, Yerida letzarech aliyah, it's coming down, further down in order to be elevated to a much higher plane. So we must remember that this soul that's inside of our body, we don't want it to just go back and start where it came from. We want to make sure that by the time it's done its duty with us and it finishes its journey together with us in our body, that it actually accumulates and it amasses and makes more on its investments. It has a bigger return on its investment, that by the time he or she returns back to the heavenly spheres, he is in a much better financial or spiritual situation than it was before it started. Have a wonderful day.